pleasure and the honor is mine. So thank you, Anya. Thank you, Pater, for that, Stefan, for that. Thank you to everybody. And Anya knows very well, Yale attitude. So I want to start from Yale. And I take off my jacket and I start to walk. So, what medium is? What a medium is? There is a longer history to define what a medium is, from Aristotle's idea of metaxou to the most recent idea by my colleague John Durham Peters that media are infrastructure for life. But if we say we squeeze the idea of the medium and we go to the center of the idea of medium, what is recurring and even stable is the idea that media define a position in the middle. Media and mediation means to be in the middle. In the middle of what? In the middle between the perceptual or organon and the perceived object, according to Aristotle, between the kingdom of dead and the kingdom of living humans, according to the 19th century idea of psychic medium, according the idea of work of art and the manifestation of this work of art on the surface, the painting, on the surface of a painting, according Greenberg. In the middle, about two things. And to be the broadcaster and the audience, for example, during the 80s and 90s. But let me make a step, a little paradoxical step. To be in the middle is an uncomfortable position. What does it mean to be in the middle? To be in the middle means that I have two different things and I'm in the middle. So I have a divergence, something that is in contrast, one and the other, the perceived and the perceptual, the kingdom of dead and the kingdom of the living. And I try to put together the opposite elements. This is mediation is. Mediation is an attempt to keep together elements that are different and putting them together to discover that they are different. Let me say that one of the targets of my lecture, is one of them, is against the discourse by all Apple, X, all these kind of things that promise to you, they want to sell you, starting from a cell phone. They promise to you to be in contact with the world. Be always in the contact. Stay tuned. You have not time to go to the arena. You can watch a football match as if you were in front of them. Not true. To be in the middle means, and that is where I'm going, means to respect the distance as much as the closeness. That's clear? This is my point. And frankly, I hate people that promise you to be closer without alerting you that you are not really closer, that you are just a little step away. A step which is crucial. This is my point. So, mediation is an ambivalent process, a separation or a reconnection, a split or an interaction. And I try to analyze this ambivalence on the process of mediation and on media themselves. And first of all, and I like to advance an idea on which I'm working, so it's something still I'm working beyond the book. I think basically we have two kinds of media. Media that help us to grab the world, to be close to the world, and media that keep the world a little bit away. If I may explain the ideas with a gesture of my hand, we have media that try to grab, and media this way, protect. I think basically we have extractive media and protective media. Media that connect and media that separate. Here an example, a set of examples of extractive media. Media that they're very aggressive. As you can see, they can extract data, like the sensors, or they can try to overcome the resistance of reality. Really, what I define extractive media is to extract and to avoid the resistance of reality and to keep things closer, for example. That is why I put antennas. You're not in the arena watching a real football match. It doesn't matter. I can keep you. This aggressive side of media, which are ultimately, whose idea ultimately is to win the resistance of reality, that is the point. I hope to be very clear on that. Reality is resistant. How to overcome the resistance of reality? Against them, I try to work on the protective media. Of course, I put that because the bicycle in the German cities, which is fantastic. I can stop my lecture and speak about bicycle in France, in Paris, in Berlin, and in Cologne. I can make a good example of difference of how people read in different, I'm joking, in different ways. But you have from walls to fences to everywhere. You have a number of protective media that work as a shield, barriers, filters against threats of the surrounding. Threats in general, not only climate change, which is a clear threat, for example, in this moment, but also threats tied with distance, for example, the idea that you're far and that is the point, or you're too close. For example, the idea, the risk of being too close, something that, as you know, in the United States is very clear because I'm a Mediterranean, I was raised in Italy, and the closeness of Italian gestures, I cannot do them in the United States. I'm threatening if I go too close to the people. So keep the distance. Protective media, keep the distance. On the contrary, the aggressive of extractive media is try to overcome the resistance, grab the world. So, what I've been working in the last years are this kind of media, of screen media, in which what I try to define is a certain kind of protection against the world. Through what? Through the connection between a screen and a space, an enclosed space. And the enclosed space and the screen, they provide a sort of shield toward the urgence or the aggressivity of reality, but nevertheless, they let, in a certain sense, the reality come. They let the reality come in a way that is no longer aggressive. Movies can be very, violent, but they are not threatening. The most violent movies are not threatening as some of the minuscule action that we can find on the street. If you experience, especially in these days in which Cologne was packed by football fans, I do not like them because they are unpredictable. So, even of the gestures. So, this protection that not by chance in Beyond the Pleasure Principle, which is one of the greatest texts of the 20th century, Sigmund Freud claimed is more important protection, more important than reception. And if you remember this wonderful essay in which he invented this vesicle as a protective shield for living organs, which is one of the most fascinating invention by Freud. Imagine that in order to preserve the living organism, no less than the death. Through the death of some cells, some elements that become a sort of crust, protecting the organism from outside. So this is basically my argument. My argument has a number of things that I just mentioned very briefly. First, my argument goes against McLuhan. Radically against McLuhan. McLuhan's idea that media are an expansion, an extension of man, I find it not correct for two reasons. First, there are media that are expansive, aggressive, extractive media. But they are not the only media we deal with. But the second reason is more subtle. If you remember, I stay 1 second on that, but I think everybody knows a little bit McLuhan, correct? You remember that McLuhan quite paradoxically say, media are an expansion of man, are prostheses to expand our senses, and the effect of the prosthesis is an amputation. Quite strange to have an amputation after a prosthesis. Any prosthesis presupposes an amputation. So my point is, I disagree with McLuhan, not only because he doesn't consider protective media, but only aggressive media, only extractive media. That is called the ideology of capitalism that McLuhan embodies. But also because logically, I think we have to take care in the process of mediation we have to try to take care before of distance and then of proximity. We have to start from our weakness, not from our strength. We have to start not from the prosthesis, but the amputation. And I'm joking with you, and I apologize for that. You see, there is an amputation in this moment, in this situation, this state. I cannot stay here where I want to stay. I'm expected to stay far from you, and my effort is to reach you. This is exactly what protective media do. They start from an amputation, from a difficulty, and then they start from a distance, And then they start to try to overcome the distance in order to regain reality in a safe way. That's correct. This is the point. So let's start. Let's put into parentheses McLuhan, and I can come back. Let's start from the distance. I'll show you a couple of examples about distance. This is the animal fold. This is the wall of a city. This is the threshold of a temple. This is the border of a nation. All this media, the fold, the wall of the city, the border, the threshold of the temple, the border of the state, all of them, they do something immediately which is very important, crucial. They define two kinds of territory. They define the wilderness and the domestic, the animal form, the law, the city, and the lawless outside the city, the religion and the profane, the Israel. And I'm also an American citizen, and Hellas, unfortunately, citizens and aliens. You are outside the border, you are an alien. Why? So, they split the world and they make an order. They define the world. They create a world organized. And it's a long story to create a world organized. What I teach in class when I arrive to this point is the book of Genesis. What is creation of the world? If you read Genesis, God doesn't create anything. He put order. He split things. The darkness and the light. The soil and the water. The water up and the water down. Etc. etc. It's a great, what they say, quite paradoxical. God is a semiotician. He make order of the world and he define, he create categories. That clear? So, the animal folder, another German scholar, which is very successful in the United States, Bruno Seeger, say, is the beginning. Wilderness and domestic. Is in reality another German who said before Bruno Seeger, he was the beginning. And this German is Abi Warburg. And this is the way in which one of the editions of the Atlas starts. One can probably designate the creation of a conscious distance between oneself and the outside world as a founding act of human civilization. Just to divide, to split the order, to create from a chaos, to create a cosmos. This is. Protective media do that. They distinguish between interior and exterior. And all these media that I showed, the folder, the fold, the wall, the threshold, etc., we can consider them media. They do that, but they do also another thing. They create exactly like God, because in the book of Genesis, which is a super interesting book, it is not only that God split, let's say, the dark and the light. You remember? There was something more. He said, it is good. So he make an axiology. He define as good something and bad as something else. So media, protective media, they do the same in a certain sense. They say interior, good, exterior, dangerous. To the point, of course, that protective media that I study, but I'm not a fan of protective media. One of the effects of the protective media is they create the dangerous external world. They make the exterior dangerous. Do you understand? If I protect myself from you, you have become my enemy. I not only put myself in a safe position, I put you in the position of my enemy, my threatening element. Do you understand what I mean? And in geopolitics, that's very often happens. I put a border and I declare he is my enemy outside the border. Do you understand what I mean? So protective media, they split the world. They take a distance from the external world, and they define the external world as a source of danger. The animal fold, the wilderness outside, the enemy in the case of the sea, the aliens. What is interesting also in that creating an interior, I create an enclosure, an enclosed space. And here some example of enclosed spaces. And my point is very akin to one of the last books by Baudrillard, who claims that our civilization is going toward subject in a sort of bubble or capsule, like astronauts, looking things from afar and thinking to be close to things that are far. That's clear? So this is Baudrillard in a certain sense. Of course, in the book that Anya mentioned, Screening Fears, I studied 3 enclosures. The first is not this one, is Phantasmagoria. This is the 19th century example of public lecture through the stereopticon. This is television. And this is our experience, our Zoom conversations. So I studied basically 3 in particular: Phantasmagoria, cinema, and the bubble, the digital bubbles, but also television, that is included in this history of protective media. I call projection protection complex this kind of mediation in which I stay away from the world and I reconnect to the world through a gate or a door or a screen, to reconnect myself with the reality from a safe point of view. To reconnect, here and I end up. I make this funny example from Sherlock Junior by Buster Keaton. That's his protection and projection. Buster Keaton in the movie, first he stay away from reality and then projects on the screen. But let's go. What does it mean to re-engage the world from a safe position? 2 things, because then I'm very eager to discuss with Professor Parker. First, reality that we grasp is a compensation of our deprivation. Because we are deprived from reality, reality comes back as a compensation of this deprivation. And here I just mentioned something that, of course, is totally tied with Auerbach and the pleasure I have to be in the Auerbach Institute, Auerbach analysis and the great analysis of realism from Middle Age and on. I point something that is something I'm working on that is very strong. I think that realism is a way to react, the deprivation of reality. We need reality because we are deprived of it. And the last form of realism is the immersive media that promise you to stay inside the event. Is exactly because I'm not there that I need to feel there. So is the lack and the loss of reality that are the force, the driving force for realism. This is my Auerbach. It's not a style of realism. It's a response to the need of reality connected with the deprivation of reality by a society that tries to protect itself. This is the point. Second, and I can say something more on that. The act I'm describing is what philosophers like Agamben and Esposito, sorry to mention two Italians, are calling the, see there, including exclusion. What is including exclusion? It's when I take something outside in order to get it back. And where is the including exclusion at the best? Vaccines. In the vaccines, I keep the viruses outside, then I take them in another form, in a weak form. It's not the only logic of vaccine, I know. But in a weak form, to protect myself against the outside, against the viruses themselves. According to philosophers like Agamben, Esposito, Pietro Montaigne is another well-known in Germany. Language is the first instrument of this including exclusion. What is language? When I use language, I keep reality outside and I take reality inside. I do not need to have a phone to say the word phone. This is including to keep outside in order to get back in another form. Reality that reappears is a vaccine in the protective media to help us to face reality stronger. It's not my idea. It's a Walter Benjamin idea that deserves to be rediscussed. Thank you.